Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont, and in this video we're going to be covering Outriders, played on PC via the Xbox Game Pass. Game's been out a while, huh? Well, I had the chance to review the game at launch, but I declined the review key process as this is absolutely a co-op game. Playing through it by myself would have resulted in an incomplete experience. So now that I've been able to play through it with my friends, I thought why not review it. Outriders is a third-person shooter action RPG from the studio that brought us a game known as Bulletstorm that came out a few years back. Don't think I reviewed that one at the time, but I did play it. It was fun, if a little short. As for Outriders, it is absolutely best played with at least one other person, but better with three, which is also the maximum. It's 3-player co-op. The premise for the game is that Earth has been abandoned, with a few survivors voyaging for many years, until they arrive at what they hope is their new Eden. Unfortunately, it all goes predictably bad, and our character ends up in cryo for 30 years after a freak accident. Once free, we discover that everything is absolutely atrocious. Factions of humans fighting each other, all whilst penned into a tiny valley and being ravaged by the planet's freak weather anomalies and magical storms. What follows is a roughly 15 to 20 hour story mode that is closer to 30 if you add on all the side content. And all of this can be done co-op. Your friends can join you at any time, and you can play through the whole game together. You never need to leave and come back or anything like that. Unfortunately, whilst some cutscenes will include all 3 players, not every cutscene does this, and well, they could have done more with it. Now, I'm a big fan of co-op games including all characters in the cutscenes. Good example would be Red Dead Online, where if you're doing cutscenes with other players in your posse at the time, then you will all be there, which can be entertaining at times, and it's just fun to see your customized characters sometimes interacting with each other. In Outriders, kind of a missed opportunity, as sometimes they're there, but most of the time they're not. It's quite inconsistent. There is an endgame mode as well, if you wish to take advantage of it. My friends and I cleared the story and most of the side content. We stopped doing the side quests in the last 1 or 2 areas because we were running out of time. We didn't partake in the endgame, partially because the Game Pass ran out, but mostly because Endwalker was about to come out and that was a higher priority for me. Either way, as mentioned, you create your own character, although customization is rather lacking and pointless, to be honest. Especially as, well, as mentioned, other characters from other players rarely show up, and when they do, they're usually wearing their armor anyway. The player character is fully voiced, so you can go for the male or the female option as you prefer. About 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the game, you will pick your class. And this can't ever be changed, although you can respec your class for free whenever you want, but you can't change your class to another one. The Devastator is a close-range tank type who you could think of as a ground or a rock element, using things like bleed and perfectly suited for shotguns. They can also raise a shield that blocks bullets and throws them back, which is very helpful for team play as your buddies can stand behind it with impunity. The Technomancer is a class that can summon turrets and other weapons, whilst also freezing enemies, with other support options such as a heal. Very useful class that is probably nearest to being a sniper kind of archetype, whereas the Trickster is the nearest thing to a solo class. Of course, it works in co-op just fine, but it seems probably one of the best suited for a lone wolf style of play to me. Energy blades, bubbles of slow time, teleports, all about the manipulation of space and time. It even feels a little bit like the Vanguard from Mass Effect, which was my favourite Mass Effect class, of course. Finally, there's the Pyromancer, who sets things on fire. Mid-range sort of class, and the one I played the most as it has 3 of my favourite things. Phoenix theme, with a Phoenix passive to self-revive, laser beams, or phaser beam in this case, and living bombs, which turns an enemy into a bomb, and then explodes them when they die. Each class has half a dozen abilities in Outriders, and you can equip 3 of them at once, along with 2 long arms and 1 sidearm. Sidearms being, pistols, hand cannons, akimbo machine pistols, and the like. Long arms being sniper, assault rifle, shotgun, double gun, submachine gun, light machine gun, etc. Double gun, by the way, isn't 2 guns, it's 1 gun with, I guess, 2 barrels or something like that. It's kind of halfway between an assault rifle and a submachine gun, I suppose you could say. One thing I enjoy about Outriders is that you can choose to focus more on guns or abilities, as they each scale with their own stats. Anomaly power and, well, firepower. There's also other stats, health, armor, status power, and whatnot. Each item can roll various stats that'll boost these, as well as more importantly, you get mods. For example, your standard epic gun at the end of the game is going to roll with 3 stats, let's say status power, anomaly power, and cooldown reduction, and then also 2 mods. These mods directly influence your abilities and playstyle. For example, you might get a mod that makes your phaser beam twice as wide. This allows you not only to focus on the playstyle you like between guns and abilities, but also to build around your favourite ability. If you find a gun with the stronger phaser beam mod and you want to keep that mod, you simply dismantle the gun, and then you have that mod added to your collection permanently. You can use it anytime you want, on another weapon or armor. There are a few limitations with the mod system, such as, well, if a gun or armor has 2 mod slots, you can only change one of them. You also can't re-roll stats, meaning you have to keep farming and, well, just watch out for when you find the piece with your god roll on it. In my case, I wanted anomaly power, status power, and cooldown reduction, because my playstyle was focused around abilities, and in particular, the phaser beam. I would put the living bomb on enemies, then nuke them with the phaser beam to make them explode, and explode other people there too. I was very fragile, glass cannon kind of style, but that was made up for by my friend Doug's Devastator being almost unkillable. He was the tank in that instance. And unlike your standard tank, healer, DPS, triangle, trifecta, whatever, it's not like the tank is so rigidly determined in this game. They can still do fine damage and whatnot. In general, I really enjoyed the gameplay of Outriders, and despite being, at first glance, a cover-based third-person shooter, you don't really need cover most of the time. You can, do a Gears of War and slide into cover and then peek out and go pew pew pew, but health regen isn't handled by hiding in cover and not taking damage, but rather from using your abilities. The Pyromancer, for example, heals from burning enemies. This encourages an aggressive playstyle, and I liked that a lot. And even if you're not in cover, you can go behind a wall and shoot some of your abilities through the wall, which I may have done a lot, shooting people with my phaser beam through walls, because why not? But that's not to say the gameplay was perfect. Whilst not strictly a gameplay thing, Outriders' map and quest tracking system is kind of bizarre, and the map just isn't very good, and sometimes it's confusing. It's like, am I here? Am I there? Where am I going? It's like, they could definitely improve that, and that would be very easy to improve with patches. But the main point we found frustrating were melee enemies. See, there are these particular enemies called alpha profiteroles or something like that, who are large melee-based creatures that have insane range jumping attacks. Like, say I'm standing at sniper distance, they can jump 50 meters over to me instantly. In theory, this wouldn't be a problem, right? I mean, we've all played games where you can roll away from jumping attacks. Sure, I get that. I know how to roll away from attack. Problem is, the game's netcode, or hitboxes, I'm not entirely sure which, are so bad that if you see one jumping at you, it's basically game over. There's nothing you can do. You can roll, you can run, but it doesn't really matter, because they are going to hit you. I would see them jump and land a good 10 feet away from me, and I would still get walloped somehow, and then I would get staggered from that and die. Because if you get backed into a corner by these things, which can of course be impossible to avoid because of the way they sort of glitchily move around, yeah, you're done. My friend was hosting, and he is across the ocean. He's in America, I'm in the UK. But the other friend was also in America. He's actually in the same town. So ping shouldn't have been a problem for him, but he still had issues, meaning the netcode is really messed up, or the hitboxes for those enemies are just really busted, and more like hit continents than boxes. It was consistently a problem with these enemies, melee in general in this game. The main reason it was these enemies is because they had that jumping attack. Most enemies would have to run up to you, right? Which gives you more room for margin for error. I don't know how you would explain it. But when these enemies can instantly jump, which is effectively teleporting, yeah, it is consistently a problem and was very frustrating now and then. But that was the only major issue I had with gameplay. The map thing was annoying, but not a huge problem. Difficulty in the game is a little bit like Diablo 3, in that as you progress, you can steadily bump up the world tier. And as you do better, as the game puts it, you can, put it up more. Whereas if you keep dying, it goes down. It's basically like an EXP bar that goes up as well as down, depending on how well you're doing. We increased our world tier every time it was available. I don't think we really had any wipes until the end of the game, so we were consistently on an upward ramp. We almost reached 15 before the end of the game without much trouble. Only the final boss then presented a huge difficulty spike, and we had to lower the world tier. It would have made sense for a world tier 15, the final one, to be the difficulty spike, but 14 turned out to be it, specifically because of the final boss, who was a combination of spamming a frustrating ability that was harder to deal with than it should have been, and, well, there was an ammo glitch and poor hit detection. See, the final boss of Outriders has an ability where he spawns orbs around the arena that constantly shoot you, and these are able to, like, two-shot me, and they're very hard to avoid because of, again, the poor hit detection. Now, you can interrupt this ability when he's casting it, as you can with most enemies in the game. When they're casting abilities of their own, you can interrupt them. However, enemies and bosses have a super state wherein you can't interrupt them. It's like when they're glowing blue or something. He would cast this orb ability multiple times during the state he can't be interrupted. We were in a loop of continuously killing orbs whilst he would summon more orbs until eventually one of us would go down, and I wasn't able to get enough ammo because even though there was an ammo box, it would only give me one sort of clip or magazine of ammo, meaning I would have to continuously go back to it, and whilst I was doing that, I would get shot. After a few attempts, we just lowered the world tier just so we could beat the game and at that point be done with it. Now, I'm fine with having abilities that are strong on, a boss, but the thing is you have to give good ways to deal with it. And on that world tier, we just couldn't. If we'd been able to always interrupt it to stop him doing it, if he had had a cooldown on it so he couldn't do it twice in a row, meaning we're killing orbs then he spawns more orbs, that would have been fine. It just felt kind of messed up on that balance. Maybe if we'd had way stronger gear, it would have been fine, but I don't know. The other issues I have with the game largely boil down just to presentation. The graphics are fine, the game also ran fine for me, although I hated that there seemed to be no way to turn off ambient occlusion, as it made the grass look horrible with a halo around the character and trails or sort of ghostly auras. While some of the facial animation was hilarious, the bigger issue is largely the writing and voice acting. Do you remember Tomik in Belgard from Family Guy? The foreigners who've been living in the USA long enough to almost sound American? That's kind of what the case is with Outriders. There's always something a little bit off or uncanny about the game's performances, along with the writing, which is often unintentionally comical for reasons that are, well, hard to explain. I mean, after we'd heard it a few times playing throughout the rest of the game, anytime our character would find an audio log, pick it up and say, "Some kind of writing here," we would just kind of burst out laughing because there was just something so weird about the way our character talks. More so than that, the game's story is, well, I can't say it's incoherent or incomprehensible, but it's absolutely ridiculous and makes no sense. It's hard to go into it though without spoiling things, but the ending of the game in particular makes zero sense, and the writing is roughly on par with, "Weren't you dead? Yes, but I got better." Oh, okay. I know, it's a game with magic powers and stuff, but that's not it. The suspension of disbelief is broken by other aspects where things just happen because they want to. Long before the twist was revealed, I was putting out all sorts of theories to my friends about what might be happening. Like, we knew there was going to be a twist because it was building up to it, and I was like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Even the weirdest of my theories made a lot more sense than what actually happened. It's not a game you play for writing and plot, obviously, but it was pretty nuts, all the same. Still, the gameplay in Outriders was fun, that's the important thing. We were playing as a big patch came out and introduced a glamour or a transmogrification system, which allowed you to, take one item and change it into the appearance of another item. And Outriders has one of the best glamour systems I've seen in a game. You just pick up an item and then it's always there. You can use it whenever you want. You don't have to be in a certain place. You don't have to spend money or anything like that. It's great. Well, they've combined things from other games into a great, painless system. The only slight issue I have with it is that it wasn't retroactive. Meaning if you already played through the game, you picked up most of the items, well, after that patch hit, you would have to pick them all up again because it wasn't retroactively applied. Outriders also has an expansion that, at time of writing, is on the horizon and we don't know anything about. But I'd like to try that out at some point, maybe, if that goes into the Game Pass. Whilst you can definitely tell there's some budget issues here and there with the game, this isn't a game made by like super massive studio, like quadruple A, infinite budget. You can tell that. But I think the devs did a great job with the important parts when it comes to making an enjoyable co-op shooter, where each person brings something powerful to the team and you can synergize nicely together. The writing can absolutely be improved, but that's not priority. Honestly, you can hire me as a writer. I promise you my rates are very competitive because you can honestly just pay me with food. I'm not picky. I'm not the best writer in the world, but even I can do better than this insane writing the game had. Hit detection and netcode, though, that's very important. They need to, I don't know, invest into that area. It's something very important, the feel of the game, and they need to improve that. So I hope that's something they work on going forward. In short, if you get the chance and have friends to play with, absolutely give Outriders a go. It's a lot of fun. Until next time, you guys take care, thank you so much for watching, and see you soon.